And there's places for you to fill in the blanks, so it'll help you remember those of you who are tactile learners. You know, there are oral learners, there are visual learners, there are tactile learners. We're going to try and cover all those bases today. How many of you watch MSNBC, CNN, FN, Fox Business, and watch the ups and downs of the markets? Okay. I've been in this business for 15 years after I retired from the Navy, and one of the things I learned a long time ago was when somebody calls me or talks to me and says, well, what did the market do yesterday? This is the first box. You can see it says, what letters? Who wants to read off the letters for me? Somebody read me the letters.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't care. Okay? Because the day-to-day fluctuations in the market have absolutely no bearing whatsoever in your ability to achieve successful retirement. Okay? So what I want you to do is when people are you're at a cocktail party and somebody say, well, you know, what did the market do yesterday? Say, I don't know. I don't care. Because it really makes no difference whatsoever. The second box in there is something that I want to tell you about, because this is where the crisis of retirement is coming from. This is not your parents' retirement. When your parents worked, they worked 30 years for the same company. There was a pension that was created, and for as long as they were alive, they were going to receive the same amount every month, and if they were lucky, adjusted for cost of living adjustments. And that was how they lived. Nowadays, how many of you actually have a pension? Okay? All right. You can see how many people that is. It's not very many, right? So you're left to your own devices. Now, there's a reason why that happened. The reason why it happened was because many employees were working and they weren't able to move ahead in their business, and so they found the only way to move ahead in their business was to move to another business. And they thought it was unfair that their retirement monies were left behind in the pension plan, and so they raised their hand and said, hey, this isn't fair. We need a better system. And that became the 401k system, where you could take your money with you when you left to go to another business. Well, the problem is that Americans aren't saving enough in their retirement plans. How many of you have $1 million in your 401k plan? Raise your hand. Okay? $1 million sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? Okay, if you talk to any financial planner who's been in the business long enough, what they will tell you is a safe rate of withdrawal from that amount, from that account, is 4.5%. You stretch a little bit, 5%. Okay? $1 million, what's 5%? $50,000. Are you going to live on $50,000 in your retirement if your current income is $90,000? Probably not. Okay? So if you think that you've got $250,000 or $300,000 or $500,000, you've got to understand, take 5% of that, and that's your safe amount of withdrawal. So if you're not saving enough money in your retirement plan, moral of the story is you better start saving now before it's too late, because the longer you have, the more you can have time working for you. Now, we have a program within the federal government called Social Security. Social Security has been around since President Roosevelt put it in place. And it's a very interesting program, and many of us believe it's going to be there, many of us don't believe it's going to be there, but it's a component that you should have when you're looking at your retirement plan, because that's a source of income that you should plan on. But there are a lot of decisions you have to make when it comes to how you take your Social Security. When do you take it? Do you take restricted benefits? All those sorts of things are very complex choices. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Andy and let him talk to you a little bit about the conundrum that goes along with taking Social Security, and fingers crossed it's still there by the time we all retire.
I don't think I can do that. Can everybody hear me okay?
No.
I don't like microphones. The most common question I get asked on a daily basis is, should I wait to take Social Security? The answer is it depends. I'm not very good at Wheel of Fortune when letters on the board, trying to guess what the phrase is. There's a lot of components that go into that aspect to actually figure out what the best strategy is for that individual. So we're going to look at a couple and kind of go through the process to figure out what could be the best for their particular situation. So we got Bob, he's 62, he's an engineer. Cynthia's also 62, she's a school teacher. Bob's going to continue working. The good thing about their relationship was that Bob made enough money, they've been socking away the majority of what Cynthia was making for the last 20 years. To get your information that we're going to use in this presentation, you can go to these two websites, socialsecurity.gov. My account takes about 10 minutes to set up the account. You can go on there and look online. They'll tell you how much you put in, how much you can estimate that you're going to receive. The second one is for us younger folks. It kind of projects out into the future. based upon where Social Security currently is and what you might have at that day of time you choose to retire. Okay, so we're going to look at two different scenarios. The question we're going to ask is whether they're going to take reduced benefits at age 62 or what they call maximum benefits and wait until age 70. So at age 62, Bob's Social Security would be $1,700 a month. Cynthia's would be $1,300, and Cynthia has a pension. She was a teacher, FRS, Florida Retirement System. So those of you guys who aren't familiar with it, it is one of the few pensions that are still left. So if they take benefits now, go back up. Good to be here. $4,800 a month or $57,600 a year. The caveat to this is that right now they don't currently need the money. They have enough money saved up. They're trying to figure out what is the best strategy for them to utilize all of the benefits that are available to themselves and their family. Scenario 2 is to wait. Bob's Social Security goes up to $2,400 a month. Cynthia's pension goes up to $1,800 or $2,400. I'm sorry, and her Social Security is $1,800, $6,600 a month, or $79,200 a year. Show of hands, who would take scenario 1?
Can I kill Cynthia and marry Bob?
We can talk about that. How about scenario 2?
I don't know enough yet.
How much tax do they pay on that?
I'm sorry?
How much taxes are they paying on that?
Depends.
Social Security is a taxable benefit, so there's a portion that's taxable. It's not completely taxable, but you got a CPA right there. He can tell you.
Yeah.
What it is.
So taking a look, what we're going to do is basically believe that they're both going to live to age 85. It's a pretty good guess. If they took reduced benefits at age 62, the future value is $2.3 million. The future value if they waited is $2.5 million. That means that if they live to 85, they will have accumulated $137,268 more by waiting. Does that sound like a good plan? There's two things in that component you can't control. At some point during our lifetimes or our children's, one of our presidents will probably get on the TV with his little blue trust me tie and start the speech off with my fellow Americans. And he's going to say something about reduced benefits possibly, or the program going away in general. We don't know what that's going to look like. The second thing is, how long are you going to be around? If there's anyone in this room who knows the answer to that, please get with me afterwards. Your planning is going to be extremely simple, and I promise you that Dave and I will offer you substantial discounts on any fees that be involved. So, in that scenario, they didn't need the money. On that sheet, if you look on there, for 32% of Americans, Social Security is going to represent 90% of their income in retirement. So we're not talking about those couples. So we're going to look at a real life situation, names change, of ways couples can do things or individuals to maximize the benefits that are available to them. We call this either Social Security max, or if there's a pension involved, it's pension max. We're going to look at taking full benefits at age 62 for both people. We're going to take the total sum that they could receive each year and purchase $1 million life insurance policy on each client. We're going to fund it for 7 years for two reasons. First reason is that's the waiting period between what would have been reduced benefits and full benefits. And the second thing is there's a little thing that the IRS calls TAMRA, the Tax and Miscellaneous Revenue Act, that dictates how a life insurance policy is taxed. So we have to make sure we keep those things in line.
What kind of life insurance policy are you talking about?
Depends. That's going to be my answer for a lot of things. There's a lot of different policies we could use. It really just depends on what the client's needs are on this individual basis. We are using a cash value component in this illustration. So the net results, if we were to utilize this strategy, now the caveat is that the output total for those 7 years that the client ended up putting into it was $403,000. At age 70, when they would have taken their full benefits, the policy has $405,760,000 in cash value. They put in 403. Each one of them has a death benefit. If either client dies prematurely at any point between age 62 until they die, the other spouse receives $1 million in tax-free benefit. The cash value can be accessed at any point on a tax-advantaged basis also. just one scenario, a particular way that planning can make sense when you sit down and look at the big picture of things. There really would be no other way. An investment guy may come to you and say, well, you can invest the money. Fine. Where's the $1 million going to come from? That's something that's passed tax-free. Retirement vehicles typically are not the most efficient way to pass on assets to an heir. There are more efficient ways to accomplish that and not burden your loved ones with a tax implication in the future. Any questions from anybody?
Okay. Now, here's the thing. How many of you trust the federal government to do what's in your best interest at all times? If you look at your little interactive sheet, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a poster. That poster was I took it from the Social Security webpage. That's a poster that came out when they first initiated Social Security. Okay? And what does it say? It says, when you reach 65, you're going to get money, right? Who can tell me what the average life expectancy of a male and a female were in the year that Social Security came into being?
43.
58 for a male and 62 for a female. Okay? 58 and 62, and the federal government said, we'll give you a check for your life when you reach 65. Okay. Moral of the story, your future's in your hands. What you choose to do with it is up to you. If you have a retirement plan at work and you're not funding it, you ought to be. If you don't have a retirement plan at work, talk to your employer and see if you can put one in place. If you're self-employed, there are ways that you can create your own individual 401k plan. The moral of the story is talk to an advisor, get professional advice, help you make the decisions that are necessary for you to be successful. You got plenty of resources that are available to you through the Chamber of Commerce. We're certainly one of them. We're more than happy to talk to you at any point and give you the benefit of our experience and our knowledge. And thank you very much for your time today.
Anybody have any questions for either Dave or Andy?
I'm managing over 300 properties. I own several. Highly leveraged when you buy it. It's a good way to build a retirement income through real estate. There's more millionaires made in real estate without anything else. Any opinion on that?
I think I've known many people in the world of real estate, and I have seen fortunes made and fortunes lost. I think anytime something says market next to it, it means that the value can go up and it can go down. Real estate market, stock market, bond market, anything that says market. So there are going to be ups and downs in every market. Things in real estate, you go to an expert and have an expert help you in real estate. But don't forget that if you own properties, and if you've leveraged that property as far as a mortgage is concerned, and you lose your tenants, all of a sudden you've got a draw on your capital with no income coming in to support it. So you have to be very well capitalized to go through those fluctuations. So these are very complex decisions that you have to make. I think that you need to be diversified. I think you need a little bit of everything going for you, because at one point, you should not be happy with everything in your portfolio. You should have one part of your portfolio that you're very upset with at all times if you have a properly constructed portfolio. Because at some point, that out of favor portion of your portfolio, be it real estate, be it bonds, be it stocks, is going to come back. And so you need to be there and participate in it. A properly constructed retirement portfolio is going to take advantage of all the markets that are out there to make sure you're properly covered and have the income stream that you need in order to live your life the way you want to live it.
And one other thing, Dave, I think you and I should take the opportunity to thank every taxpayer in there for our big government pension from the Navy.
Yeah, it's funny. People tell me all the time, well, I paid your retirement. I said, well, I paid my retirement just as much as you paid my retirement, because I pay taxes on my income too. And if you want to give me back the years that I missed from my child's life and when I was deployed, come talk to me about it.
You have a little attitude.
Yeah. I have a little attitude. Yes,
Can you give a couple examples of, for example, like for those of us that also have a military retirement, and if, say at 62 we said we want to start collecting our Social Security, are there restrictions the government places on if you receive revenue from other sources, we will take only give you a certain percentage of Social Security? And what are some examples that might impact the group?
Well, that's a really good question because pensions vary in a lot of ways. Social Security is basically it's a benefit that's based on time and amount of money that you put into the system, and then you get whatever that amount is. And then your spouse, there's a spousal benefit associated with that. And I'm not a computer. I can't do the calculations in our minds. We have access to a really good system that will demonstrate for you what those benefits will be. And if you want to come by and talk to us, we're more than happy to sit down. You can even pull off from the Social Security website and feed our calculator exactly what your current situation is. And then let you make projections based on that as you go forward. A lot of pensions have a decision you have to make when you retire and you go to take that pension. Do you take it just on your life? That's going to give you your largest pension in all likelihood. Or do you take it on your life and the life of your surviving spouse, and that will have an impact on how much you're going to be able to get. So really the moral of the story is you need to sit down before you're getting ready to retire with an advisor and say, okay, this is where I am. I'm looking like I want to retire now. What's the best way for me to take my pension money? What's the best way to take money out of the market? Because I'm here to tell you, it's a lot easier to grow money than it is to withdraw money. Because once you're in the withdrawal stage, you got one chance to make it right. You make a mistake, and when you're withdrawing the money, the consequences can be devastating to you and to your family. Because when you're taking money out of the market, in a downward market, you are hampering the ability for that money to grow back when the market turns around. So you need another source of funds that you can draw from when the markets are down, so you give the full amount of your money and then the market's a chance to grow back. And so that's why we have multiple asset classes that we like to use with our clients to help them be successful in the withdrawal aspect of retirement, which is, as I said, the hardest thing because you're not working anymore and you can't put more money in. You're done. And you got what you got. Okay? Yes?
Got an unusual situation that's useful to remember. My first wife died after she was receiving Social Security benefits. And so I am entitled as a provider of benefits.
Right.
But our provider of benefits allow me to wait until I'm 70 to draw on mine. But nobody wants their spouse to die. But should that happen, remember that you are providers of benefits.
Right, exactly. Once again, it's a very complex system, and it's really beneficial to sit down and get the information you need in order to maximize the ability to benefit you and your family.
You seem to know as much as they do. You're a new partner for you guys.
Appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you guys do any work with overfunded indexed universal life insurance policies to fund for retirement?
Okay, and that's an interesting case. It's the thing about universal life, and this is a long.
Universal life.
I'm sorry. Index. Okay. Right. Yeah.
Does it depend?
You want to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Financial tools inherently are neither good nor bad. They just have pros and cons. So if I gave you a board, a nail, and a hammer, you're going to be able to get that nail into the board by using the saw. Turning the saw around and mounting the nail into the board. It would be more efficient if I gave you a hammer. For that example, with indexed universal life, what you have is participation rates and cap rates. So inside of that policy, it's telling you what the maximum is that you can earn based on the performance of the underlying investments and the insurance company. Whatever happens above that cap, the insurance company keeps. There's a lot of limitations inside of that policy where there's alternatives that are very similar that allow you to have almost full participation in the gains of the market. And in a product like that, what you're trying to protect against is the downside.
But you lock in your gains every year that's added to your principal, so where's the downside in that?
That you have a cap on how much you can gain. If the market runs 30% and your cap is 5%, the insurance company's keeping 25%.
Okay, what if the market goes down 38%? What do I lose?
Depends on the policy.
I lose nothing.
Depends on the policy.
Or 0.
Could be 0. Could be -3. Could be 3. A lot of companies are different and the policies are different. So if you're speaking to one particular, obviously that's going to be in the fine print.
Let me, if I can, because there's a lot of misconceptions. The best way to picture a universal life policy is that it's a bucket of water. Okay? And it's a bucket of water, and your life insurance policy is available to you as long as there's water in the bucket. Should the bucket ever run out of water, then that policy is useless. Okay? Unless you put more water into the bucket. Now there's a spigot at the bottom, and that spigot is going to take water out. It turns, and the things that come out of it are all the expenses of the insurance company. Mortality expenses, when people die, they have to pay death benefits, and so that has an impact. Okay? And then the performance of the underlying index or funds. Okay? So that comes out, and there's water that comes in. That's your premium dollars, and that's also whatever happens within the market that affects your. So if you have a fixed type of a universal life, whatever the interest rates are. Okay? So as long as you're putting more money into the bucket, or more water's going into the bucket that's coming out of the bucket, you're okay. But as soon as you start drawing money out, and if the water's flowing out faster and you're drawing money out, you run the risk of that policy not having any value. And so that's the nature. So those are the things you have to take into account. And it's a fairly complex matter. It's hard to generalize and let everybody know. But if you just think on a universal life policy, just think about it. It's a bucket of water. And as long as there's water in the bucket, then that will pay a death benefit to your heirs. If there's no water left in the bucket, then that expires and there's nothing, no more benefit whatsoever. So those are the things you have to remember. So Index Universal Life has a position for those people who are scared of the market and they don't think that the market is going to work for them and they want to protect against the downside. But the way the markets work is I guarantee you two things. Markets go down and they go up. Only two things I can guarantee. I absolutely guarantee you they will go down and they will go up. But the history is that they've gone up more than they've gone down. And so if you have the time to allow the full market cycle to work for you, you are going to be able to capture that and you can participate fully. So avoiding the downside sometimes comes at a cost. And you just have to determine if that's the right cost for you. And everybody's different. And that's why it goes back to what he's saying. A financial instrument is neither good nor bad by definition. It simply is. And you just have to use the right tool for the right job. And if that happens to be Index Universal Life, great, then do that. If that happens to be a whole life policy, great, do that. If it's a term policy because you've got a limited exposure, great, use that. If you're trying to grow money, use an investment account. None of these instruments are good or bad. It's just how you use them. That's the important point. Use the right tool for the right job, and find somebody who you can trust, and you sit down and you talk with them, and they'll help you determine what's the right tool. Okay.
All right. If you guys have any more questions, Dave and Ann, you'll be around afterwards. Please feel free. Thank you guys very much. All right, now we're going to have our 5-minute spotlight speaker, our Ambassador of the Year, Mark Carilla. How did you get to be Ambassador of the Year? Who voted on that?
I was the last choice.
5 minutes.
Not really.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Mark doesn't have a 5-minute speech in it. No. Pass those around for me.